popular demand, Portrait Artist of the Year done Shelly J style. So if you don't already know what Portrait Artist of the Year is, I'm just going to go over it real quick. If you want to hear about it in detail, check the link above. I have a video where I explain it in full detail. So it's a portrait painting competition for artists living in the UK. The artist set up to paint the portrait. An unknown sitter is revealed to them on the spot. They only have 4 hours to complete the portrait. So when the sitter is revealed, it's going to be someone famous like an actor, a musician, an author. And then the winner of each round moves forward to the semifinals, and then the finale is that winning artist painting the portrait of this famous person. They get a nice cash award, and then their painting goes on to live in a prestigious museum or government building in London, I believe it is. So that's pretty cool. So the reason that I started doing this is, so this competition is for artists living in the UK. Well, I live in the United States, so hopefully one day Sky Arts will smile down upon us artists living in the US and do a competition here. Yes, please, Sky Artists, competition here. So I have a name in my little thing here of who we're going to paint. So I don't know who my sitter's going to be, just like they don't know who their sitter's going to be until I pull the name out. Drum roll, please. Going to be painting Peter McKinnon, YouTuber, photographer, magician, coffee lover. Coming for you, Peter. So, let's paint. Welcome to my channel, Shelly J. Cox Artist. Come along with me on my art journey. So the first thing I did to start my portrait of Peter McKinnon was I went on his YouTube channel and I freeze framed a few of his videos. Then, with a erasable colored pencil, I sketched some basic elements onto my canvas. So the next thing I did was fill in the background with some black acrylic paint so it would dry quickly. Basically, I created a noten. If you don't know what that is, it's a Japanese term meaning light-dark harmony. Artists use noten studies to explore different arrangements of light and dark elements in a composition. A noten typically is black and white. It'll sometimes have one gray value thrown in. It's a useful tool to help artists focus on design. A good noten will have over more than half of the painting covered in one value. So here's a look at my palette to start. I will list my paints in the description below. And as usual, I set up my palette before I start painting. I'll be sure to take a picture at the end so you can see how my palette ends up. So I'll be doing this portrait in my usual selective start method, and I will tell you a little bit about how I found Peter McKinnon on YouTube. Hey, if you're finding my videos interesting or even entertaining, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that button and ring the bell so you're notified of when I load a new video. Thank you! So I happened upon Peter McKinnon's channel one day when I was just searching around YouTube. The first video I watched was called "The Mountains Won't Remember Me." I think I clicked on this thumbnail because of the moody pic of mountains against a stormy looking sky. I've been stuck here in hot Florida and missing my last trip out to the west to visit the mountains. So I felt like this would take me there, at least for a little while. Well, I fell in love with Peter's work instantly. I subscribed to his channel and watched like a ton of his videos. I love his energy, his positive vibe. He seems so real. Like, this is me and this is what I do. Huh! Yes, his videos show you how to take cool pics, how to make videos, but he does it in a way that is cinematic and exciting, even when filming in a talking head style. Peter makes you feel like you're one of his mates. Yes, please. I love that he is sometimes silly. I especially love his duets with Squarespace Pete. Thank you, Peter McKinnon, for being so real with us. So I learned a lot about Peter after watching his interview of Peter asking his father questions that people put in the comments on his channel. And it was pretty interesting. I learned that Peter could have grown up to be a magician. That's what his father thought he was going to be. So I threw in some magician type elements into his portrait, the cards. And I learned that he likes coffee a lot. So, well, you'd learn that from any of his videos. Peter really likes his coffee. So of course I had to have coffee in his portrait, which we do. Peter seems very energetic. I don't think he's the kind of person that would do well sitting behind a desk all day. So of course I had to paint his portrait in a way that showed all that energy. So in his portrait, I feel like there's a lot of movement. It almost looks like he's in motion, and that's what I was going for with the movement in his arm. You'll see that as the portrait progresses coming up. If you haven't seen Peter McKinnon's YouTube channel, definitely check it out. I think you'll really like it. So in keeping with the Portrait Artist of the Year theme, I wanted to make sure I did this painting in under 4 hours. It actually took me about 3.5 hours to complete in total. And I was worried it might take a little bit longer since I had so many other elements. Usually my portraits that I do in under 4 hours are more just of the head or head and bust type setup. But this one had a lot going on in the background, which it definitely needed. It couldn't have done it any other way. And there's been a couple of artists that I've seen on the actual Portrait Artist of the Year videos that did some amazing things in just 4 hours. I mean, one artist actually did a dip trick where he had 2 canvases. One was a little more detailed and one was real dreamy like, but I thought that was a little, I don't know, there's no way I would have painted 2 paintings in 4 hours. It may have helped that the actual canvas is only 14 by 18 and the head ended up being only about 5 inches tall. So it's kind of small. I normally paint my heads more closer to life size. But I started this painting on the shadow side. That's why the skin tones you see me working on here look so dark. Well, anything's going to look dark compared to that stark white. But I did. I started on the shadow side, and I will be moving over to the light here shortly. A cool tip that I picked up from my mentor, Tina Garrett, is that my brush strokes shouldn't be much longer than the actual length of the paintbrush. So I'm using like a number 4 paintbrush here. It's a flat. So you can see my strokes are really pretty short and succinct. I'm just trying to load the paint up and just place it down almost like a tile kind of placement. I really love going onto the YouTube platform and whoever I'm painting freeze framing their videos. I just feel like that gives such a lot of emotion and movement to the portrait. And I've actually carried this practice over to my commission work where I'll always photograph my sitters, but I also like to video them now. And more than not, I tend to use the video freeze frame over the actual photographs. Then taking the image and putting it in Photoshop, and I've gotten pretty good at compositing, and since doing this I have improved my compositions a lot. It's really helpful to see how things are going to lay out and where exactly the elements you want in your painting are going to sit. And maybe you've thrown in too many, and that way you can take one out, leave one in, and really play around with it in Photoshop before you actually hit with paint. So I like to mess up my brush strokes by just brushing across with this really large soft brush. I don't press hard at all. It is such a light whisper across the surface. If you're getting some value out of the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. I gotta say, I love the freedom that oil paints allow me to have. When I'm painting, I'm not afraid to mess up or make a mistake because I know that the oil paints are going to allow me to either wipe it away, scrape it off, paint over it. I mean, there's really nothing bad that can happen just by painting fearlessly and going for it. Also, I do a lot of prep work before I start the actual painting. From taking the photo reference and preparing that in Photoshop, working out the composition, and then preparing my paint palette, getting pretty much all of my lights, middle values, and dark values situated. And then, of course, as I paint, I create new colors as I go because they end up being mixed together, but that's part of the beauty of being prepared. I mean, you can just jump in and things just tend to work out. Like this time, I started with a little bit of an underdrawing. I don't know, sometimes when I'm getting ready to start a painting, I have a little bit of fear, and if I put down a few lines, it helps me get past that. But sometimes I have no fear and I just jump in. Now, I don't know what causes me to have the fear or how not to have it, but I do have these tools and ways around it, so it lets me get painting and not stay frozen in fear. So if you guys are coming up with some questions, make sure you put them in the comments and I will definitely get back with an answer. Okay, I'm just going to paint for a little bit now. So Peter has a little bit of facial hair, and I like to put down some skin tone and have that paint surface to put the whiskers on top of. So after doing several portrait paintings,
sometimes on white canvas, sometimes on a canvas with an underpainting. I haven't been able to really decide which I prefer. I just do the white canvas more often than not because I tend to just want to jump in and start painting. But I think when I'm painting over an underpainting, I don't feel like there's much of a difference for me. I don't have too much trouble painting on the white because when I pre-mix my palette, I know that my mid-tone values, my dark values are coming from certain places on my palette, and I don't have to worry about it. Because when you first put them down on white, they look really dark, or you're thinking, maybe is that too dark? I don't really feel or think like that because of pre-mixing them and where they're positioned on my palette. So maybe that is one thing that helps me to not need an underpainting. But so far, I can't really pick one over the other. Now, I do think that an underpainting is really helpful for me when I'm doing a larger canvas, so there's a lot more going on in the composition. It's a more complicated setup for the painting. I feel like I really need the underpainting in that situation. Okay, time for some fun background elements. So Peter has a tattoo on his right bicep, and I don't know, maybe sometime or some video of his he explains what it's about, but I don't know what it's about, but it has this really interesting little like greenish dinosaur dog kind of creature thing on top of like what looks like maybe a doghouse. So I knew I wasn't going to get that arm in the painting, so I thought it would be a really cool thing to do, to pop that tattoo out and put it next to him on his shoulder. So that's what you see here. Okay, so there's a lot of tattoos going down Peter's, which arm is this? We're working on the left arm. And I've discovered over the past times that I've painted tattoos that it's best for me if I put down the skin first and then go back over it while it's still wet with the tattoo markings. So that's what you see here. So I'm painting everything really loose on the arm. I want it to look like it's in motion, so there wouldn't be anything really too in focus. Even the time diode dial thing on his watch, I want it to look like streams of light, so it was in motion, being waved across the picture frame. Now, after all the paintings that I've done, I feel like the ones that make me see or feel movement are the ones that I gravitate towards. They really seem to jump at you and pull the viewer in, where the more static compositions don't do that. So if you've watched any of Peter McKinnon's video, some of his backdrops have been these like lit shelves behind him, and they have all these antique cameras going across. And so that's what I've got going on here in his background behind his head and behind the cards in the air. I couldn't very well paint a portrait of Peter McKinnon without having some reference to cameras in it. Now, just like the hands, I don't want to have static cards flying through the air, so I really want them to show movement, and I don't want anything painted too precisely, so that if you can imagine cards flying through the air, you wouldn't really be able to see something so perfectly. So I'm not really sure why Peter didn't go with a career in magic, but he certainly is a magician with his photography. Which makes me realize that we artists, we're magicians, we are light magicians. We manipulate paint to depict how light reflects off different surfaces and creates this 3D situation on a 2D surface. So yeah, we're light magicians. So to date, this is going to be my 5th Portrait Artist of the Year done Shelly J style. So I've got about 5 creators, mostly YouTube creators, that I've depicted. So maybe I'm going to have to put together some kind of art show where it's just all about YouTube or creators. I think that'd be a really cool thing to curate. Okay, so the final element, coffee. You can't paint Peter McKinnon without something to do with coffee happening in the painting. So, Peter, here's your coffee. So I'm really loving doing these Portrait Artist of the Year done Shelly J style type videos. I hope you guys are liking them. I'm probably going to do some more, and you can have that to look forward to. But I appreciate you guys watching. If you're loving following the portraits, the paintings that I'm doing, the things that I'm talking about, make sure you subscribe to the channel and come along with me on my art journey. And at the very end of the video, there's a funny little moment where I pretend to be Peter McKinnon. Oh yeah, I did.
What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here. What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here.